was an interesting, uh, uh, the ship, the City of Newport News, which went from New York to San Francisco, uh, was a freighter, but it had room for 11 passengers. So our family made up 6 of these, and I learned some of my English on that. That was a 3-week trip. We left, I forgot when, but we arrived in San Francisco on November 1, 1938. The, as I recall, it was the day after Halloween. And sailing through the Golden Gate. In the morning we were up, it was 5 or 6 in the morning, and when we first saw the Golden Gate, and then as we went through it, the sun was up, and it was a gorgeous sight. One other thing I would say from that, what I remember from the City of Newport News, that there was a pathway that we had to go from one place to the other. And there was one of the crew behind me, and he says, "Go ahead." Well, I knew by that what right and left was, but I didn't know what ahead was. So I learned. Anyway, it was an interesting trip. And I remember one thing on it was there was a, maybe I would estimate a tank, canvas covered, maybe 10 feet by 6 feet, which you could swim in. And we went into that tank, which was the pool of that freighter. Well, maybe that's enough for this day.
Do you remember the other 5 people on that ship? Because you were so close for 3 weeks.
No, I don't remember anything about that. I remember one thing, I made a paper boat out of newspapers, which one you could do, and I put a string on it, and I thought I could hang it out of the porthole on a long string and have it sail along with us in the ship. That was not a successful experiment. The boat never got to my newspaper boat never got into the water, flying behind us on the string next to the boat.
Well, that sounds like fun. Well, this was terrific. You've got such a memory, Dad. It's just amazing.
This rambling.
Oh, I don't think it was rambling at all.
Well, it was. They were very. The reason we looked at this last night was in our living room where we watched it. There is a model of the New Amsterdam, which was the ship that took us from Rotterdam to New York. In my study, I showed my wonderful daughters a model of the Rheingold train that took us from Karlsruhe to Basel. Had we waited, we left August the 17th, as you know, after Kristallnacht on November 9th of 1938. Whether we would have gotten out at all is problematic. And those Jews who remained after 1942 in Germany took a one-way train to their deaths in the extermination camps in cattle cars. So the contrast between our exodus and the fate of 6 million Jews is incredibly fortunate And I keep this ship and the train and a book on the Holocaust from the Holocaust Museum, which interestingly enough has a picture of one of the cattle cars, and the name on the cattle car is Karlsruhe.
Wow.
And my uh, journey to America was almost a cruise. And then my education in the United States was an excellent Alamo Grammar School, Presidio Junior High School, wonderful George Washington High School, one of the best colleges in the United States at the time, University of California at Berkeley, and medical school at Harvard. So my education couldn't have been better, preparing me for a wonderful, successful life in the United States, and blessed with a simply wonderful wife and wonderful children with wonderful husbands and grandchildren. So the contrast between what my life turned out to be and what the life of the man who was in the documentary, Kurt Klein, who with his brother and sister tried vainly to get his parents to the United States, not succeeding because of the inhuman and the blocks to the issuance of visas, which is so clearly documented in that piece, The America and the Holocaust, that a day does not go by when I don't reflect on how fortunate even I were to be able to get out with our family and enjoyed a wonderful life in the United States.
You were saying that your dad actually had a conflicted thing. He sponsored 120 people, but also
yes, that was another thing. We left, as I mentioned earlier. My mother wanted to leave early on 30th year. My father wanted to establish himself, was established, did not see that it was as crucial as my mother did. My father was highly recognized and respected in the Jewish community of Karlsruhe, and he felt that by leaving late, he gave a false message to many other Jews in Karlsruhe who stayed longer because Fritz Simon had stayed. And because of that, my father felt very guilty about this episode of leaving late. When he spent the first 3 months in this country going to all of our relatives and contacts of our relatives, getting as many affidavits as possible for people to emigrate from Karlsruhe. And as I recall, he was successful in getting 120, of which about 60 actually were able to emigrate. But apparently about 60 did not, and they perished in the extermination camps. And I have one envelope of one of the letters that was returned from the internment camp in France, in Vichy, France, called Gurs, G-U-R-S, which was also mentioned in the America and the Holocaust documentary. And the envelope came back with a stamp, address unknown. And my father related this episode to me, and that he, throughout his life, felt that had he left earlier, more Jews from Karlsruhe might have been saved. So.
Thanks, Dad. This is really wonderful. It's been terrific.
We better
join the Eve and everybody else for breakfast. But we'll do some more next time.
We have to leave shortly. Thank you, Carol.
Thanks, Dad.
For wanting to do this. And to at least leave a record as to how lucky, because Carol, Lori, Renee, and all the grandchildren would at least have different parents had not this non-Jewish colleague of my father around Christmas 1937 taken my father on a walk in a park outside the offices in Berlin.
We've been very lucky.